Oh.
What's going on?
Good morning and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey toward publication. I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Katana, and I write Christian fantasy.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction under the pen name Dee Dee Bowman. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay, there's two things going on here. First of all, my computer started doing weird, glitchy things, and I hope that I can make it all the way through this. It would be devastating if I didn't. Right. Second thing is I'm starting to take some of our old episodes and chop them up into different things, and I need more outtakes. So that's what I'm doing here today. Thank you.
Thank you. I love it.
We had a lot of chat going on already in our chat. Good morning, Maria. So glad that you're here. Gigi's with us as well. Hello. Leah is here as well. We can see that there's other people that are lurking and not talking. That's okay, but we'd love for you, if you are here, to just put a comment in the chat so we can talk with you and see you. We have a great community of Christian writers here with us every week.
And if you like what you see here today, make sure to like and subscribe in all the places because we're everywhere. Yeah. So let's go around the table and find out what's up with everybody. Tina, tell us what's up with you.
Well, back in November, my husband, trying to pull out of my husband what he wanted for Christmas. And he always says, don't spend money. That's what he says when I ask him. And so finally I got him to tell me what he really wanted for Christmas. He wanted to go down to the cultural center in Flint and see a play.
Aww.
So I looked online and I missed. It was like the day after the showing of Charlie Brown's Christmas. Because that's like his all-time favorite cartoon ever. So I was so bummed that I missed it. But I was able to get tickets to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the new musical. And that was last Tuesday that we went to see it. So he had to wait a couple months, but that's what he got for Christmas. So it was really nice. We had a great time. But the musical has a song that's not in the movies. And the one line in the song that really struck me was, it has to be believed to be seen. Like you know how Willy Wonka's always going, strike that, reverse it. But this time he was saying it has to be believed to be seen, not seen to be believed, right? So my ideation brain has just been driving me nuts with all these ideas that popped out from that one line in that one song. And it's not a concept that I haven't heard before, because it's even biblical. Like, we can't see or understand spiritual things without the help of the Holy Spirit. But as a writer of Christian fantasy, I was just like, oh, you know what I could do with that concept? Right. Like, I have so many ideas. So that's I'm just excited about it. I'm just like.
My children had an ABC Bible verse cassette or CD or whatever. And Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And then the little kids in the background are singing, Hebrews, Hebrews, Hebrews 11:1. So anyway, that's what that reminds me of.
Right. So I was just like, for Christian fantasy, like that whole concept just gives me so many ideas.
I bet. Yeah.
That's awesome. Jen, what's going on with you?
Well, I am getting my office put back together, and it is not at all what I thought it was going to be. So I had this image of a really kind of more peaceful kind of I had artwork that was going to go on this back wall. And once I got everything back together and I had to put my Kanban and calendars up and all of that, it looks, now that I'm looking at it, it looks really busy. It looks really crazy, but it's actually really helping me to get work done. I'm just going to move my camera a little bit so you can see there's the calendars up there that I'm working on, and I have another bookshelf in place because I have a lot of stuff. That's the thing. Like I could never have like a peaceful kind of like empty-ish kind of room because I have too many books and too many things that bring me joy. So it's like this is what you get. So yeah, so
What kind of a peaceful room doesn't have books?
I know, right? Well, look at how nice your background looks, right? You have a
Oh.
chair with some flowers behind you, and I have like it looks like chaos to me, but it's okay because my life has been chaos, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to share for my what's up because there's just been so much that has happened since I've seen you guys. I'll just give you the short of it. My mom is in the hospital. She's been in the hospital for a while. She's going to be going to a rehab facility. She had a bad infection, and that was making her Alzheimer's way worse. And so, and then she caught COVID while in the hospital. I caught COVID from her because I was in the hospital with her every day. So it's just been craziness, but truly the one thing that continued prayers always appreciated, but the one thing I really could use prayers for right now, the most recent thing that has happened is yesterday one of our kittens got hit by run over by a UPS truck right in front of my daughter. And so they're barn cats, which most people are like, oh, barn cats. Well, our barn cats are like the friendliest things you ever saw. We love them. Like they crawl all over us and then we play with them and we just love them. And so I just prayers for my daughters because the one daughter was right there. And right after it happened, I just had this sense. I looked out and I could see my daughter's reaction. And then I looked down the road and my reaction made the other girls run to the window, which I feel really bad about. And so it all kind of happened all really fast. And so everyone's having a really hard time with it. So please be praying for my girls because they are all very sensitive women, which I praise God for because our world needs some sensitive hearts in this world. But when you have a really sensitive heart, when you go through something like this, it's devastating. So
we used to live right on Saginaw Street. Like the side of our yard was against Saginaw Street, which is like a major road in the town where we live. And I had drilled it and drilled it and drilled it in my kids that you're not allowed to even step onto the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
You stay on the grass. And I had like threatened them with a wooden spoon. I never used the wooden spoon, but I had threatened it. Like, you're going to get this if that. And I'm so glad I did that because we had a puppy and my son Michael was chasing the puppy. And the puppy ran right into Saginaw Street and got run over 5 times.
That's devastating to a child.
He stopped and he never set foot on the sidewalk.
Oh, and we live on a side road and we live kind of close to a road, but like this happened on our road, which is like almost no traffic ever. It just was like the wrong timing.
Hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that really affected him to watch his puppy get hit that many times. And there was nothing he could do but stand there. But I'm so glad that I had drilled it into him. Because if he had ran out after the puppy, then he would have been hit. He was, 6 or something, 5 or 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well, let's look at some happier stuff. Maria's What's Up. Finish edits for her historical mystery romance novel. Yay! It's now with beta readers. Also reading through her editor's comments of her 3rd Celtic novel from her publishers. Good for you, Maria. That's awesome. And she says that my background is awesome. Love your books.
It is.
You can't even see all the books. Like there's a whole nother bookshelf here full. Like I had all my books and I got rid of a lot of books when we moved, but I also inherited my aunt's books. And I have my grandmother's antique bookcase. Rhonda's seen it. Glass front, like lawyer's
like a barrister's cabinet.
A barrister, yeah. And it is full of antique books and family Bibles. I got all the family Bibles over there. Like I have a lot of books. So I tried making it like not as busy, but whatever. This is me.
I wanted to say earlier that it looks like somewhere I want to go in and just explore everything.
Anytime you want.
Like you got pens and cups up there. Like I want to look at all your pens.
And add things to your outline when you're not looking.
Oh, yeah. Like that's never happened. That's a whole nother story. You could probably go back and watch old podcasts and you'll see how the ladies added some flair to one of my outlines before. So
it was
a great ideas.
It was a lot of fun. It was funny.
Okay. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was going to hit a few more people. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Maria also says, I also started reading this great book, Lost in Land of the Midnight Sun by Christina Catane. Loving it so far, Tina.
Oh, yay.
and people are saying they're going to be praying for me. I really appreciate it. Really. I mean, that's really what I need is prayers. My family does. Piper says, "What's up? Did get some words written this week, but also been sick." Oh, I'm so sorry, Piper.
I still love her new logo. It's so cool. She writes clean shifter books, and that's why the fox is relevant there. Isn't that cool?
I'll put it back up there so you can see it. People can see it. Yeah, that is really cool.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so for my what's up, basically I've been just trying to work on my habits this week, and I'm getting better and better at it, and I feel like I'm accomplishing stuff. So
Yay.
that's awesome. But now I'm ready for some Stoic wisdom from Jim.
Yes, and it's interesting. I feel sort of like the pieces that I picked out kind of are hand in hand with a little bit of what Tina was talking about, sort of. I don't know, in my abstract brain. But the February 17th of the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, he quotes Epictetus. It is quite impossible to unite happiness with a yearning for what we don't have. Happiness has all that it wants, and resembling the well-fed, there shouldn't be hunger or thirst. And then, of course, the author goes into a little bit about not wanting what you don't have being the secret to sort of happiness. And I think it's First Thessalonians. I lost my Bible note up here that says godliness with contentment is great gain. I believe it's First Thessalonians 6:6. No, First Timothy 6:6. And I've always liked that scripture. Godliness with contentment is great gain, because if you're always striving for something, where is the finish line to where you can finally be happy? How many millions of dollars is enough to where you can say, well, now I have enough money, I'll be happy? How many friendships are enough friendships where you say, well, now I have enough people in my life, I can be happy? And it's, as the prophet Sheryl Crow once said, it's not getting what you want, it's wanting what you've got, right? So that is
so wise.
Yes.
What a sage advice from Sheryl Crow.
And that is the Stoic wisdom for today.
Aw, love that. Hey, one more. What's up?
Yep.
Aaliyah says, struggling a little, but hoping for a good weekend of writing. I don't write on the weekends. Do you girls? Are you guys weekend warriors? Do you write on the weekends?
No.
No, I usually work a lot on the weekends, but
I wonder if when my kids are grown, if I don't if you had kids that are little, Rhonda, do you think you would write on the weekend?
No.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, I try to, but I can see like when I become a empty nester, I can see the weekends kind of like blending in. Yeah. Huh.
Yep.
Well, good luck, Leah. Hope you get lots of writing done this weekend.
Yep. Well, maybe today's topic will help.
Yes.
So let's talk about it. Today's topic: how real is too real? Would someone like to explain why we're talking about this today?
I nominate Tina.
Oh boy, let me find the outline.
Well, it was
It's not in there.
It was your son sort of being pensive, remember?
Yes. Well, yeah, it kind of started that way where my son, we were actually we have a house church. And so sometimes we get into these really deep topics because it's like less than a dozen of us. And that particular night, there was a couple there, and then nobody else had come because of sickness and stuff. So we were talking about mental health. And my son made this comment because I said, I don't understand why this next generation of kids turning 18 seem to be so aimless, a lot of them, and that don't really know where they want to go in their life. And that's just my experience with the ones that I know. I'm not saying that they're all like that. And my son said, well, it's because we feel like the world is ending. And if the world's going to end, why plan a future? And it just brought me back around to like all the hard things, all the hard things that happen in life. And if you're a Christian author and you want your books to minister to people, then how can we avoid talking about the hard things?
Right. Because like mental illness is one of those things that I have found a lack of in writing for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said he made the statement that if when one of our church members' husband's a prepper, so he's he has this abandoned house in a field that he bought, and he's leaving the outside looking abandoned, but he's like fixing the inside. So when doomsday comes, that's where he's going. And my son said, if that day comes, I'm going to watch the sunset for the final time and lay down and die.
Wow.
Like, that's his attitude. And he said, and a lot of his friends feel the same way. Like, the end is coming, so why make plans? Kind of situation.
Wow.
It's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
That is sad. All right. Well, as a Christian indie writer, ladies, we market to a Christian audience, right? And we try to create a brand that promises certain things to our readers.
Right. And so we got to stop there just for a second. Like, if you are watching this or listening to this and you're a Christian writer, but you don't market to Christian audience, it'll be different, right? Would you guys agree with that? Jamie?
I would agree with that because that is me. I am a Christian who writes fiction. I am not a writer of Christian fiction.
So, like, your lines of what is like too much are going to be based on what you feel, right? It's going to be
Right.
100% your choice. Like, as a Christian, like, I'm not saying that because Jamie doesn't market to a Christian audience that she can put all kinds of like nasty stuff in her books, and she doesn't do that, but it's her choice because she's not marketing to a Christian audience. But if you do market to a Christian audience, then again, that's a brand and you have a promise that you're making to your readers. So this is where we're coming from with this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Jason says, amen, Tina. I have been working on addressing several such topics for my writing. We had an episode similar to this. Remember, we talked about, from my perspective as a romance writer, how much is too much. And so I should have looked that number up to I'll look that up really quick.
We talked about how this conversation isn't going to be so much about hanky panky and fade to black, which that episode pretty much was about that particular spicy level or whatever you want to say. And we're talking here about a little bit different, not just bounce chicka wow wow stuff, but also like real life issues, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, of course, I'm a nonfiction reader as well as fiction, but one of my favorite books written by a Christian is The 5 Love Languages. That book helped me immensely throughout my life, and I use it almost on a daily basis, but there was not one single gospel message in the entire book, but it was written by a Christian. So, are there rules or any sort of conventions, or, if we're going to write Christian fiction or nonfiction, what do we have to follow?
Well, I don't know. There are things that traditional publishers will not publish to a Christian audience. But I believe that those rules that you would find from a traditional publisher are based on what the general Christian audience will and will not accept.
I would agree, because their business is to sell books. And so you should probably listen to them, because if you want to sell books to the same audience, they've already figured it out for you. So why would you deviate?
Right.
I'm interested in what our chat has to say too. So we have a lot of Christian writers in our chat. And so if you guys would, in the chat, drop us some kind of suggestion of things that, like, how do you decide what is too much? Where do you draw the line? Or what conventions do you look at? Because I'm curious to see what they have to say.
Yeah. And what are we talking about then if we're not talking about spice level? We're talking about things like violence and gore and mental health issues, and what else possibly?
Well, the one story that I'd really like to tell is comes from a real life experience. And that real life experience was the fact that my husband was a pastor in the inner city, and the prostitutes worked on the corner that the church was on. And so my friend Rhonda and I, not this Rhonda, another Rhonda.
I'm over here.
In the wrong direction. We would go out and talk to them and minister to them and try to provide them with things that they needed and just love on them. And when you start to hear their stories, you start to realize that they didn't choose this.
Right.
And how in the world are they going to believe Jesus loves them when they can't love themselves? Like that's the thing, the takeaway that I got. But there was one incident. It was I believe it was in a February, and it was below zero. It was like 20 below zero. And I was in my car in the church parking lot, and this one girl that worked on the corner, I had let her come sit in my car because it was cold to get warm. The church wasn't unlocked yet. I think I was waiting for my husband to come unlock the church. And all she was wearing was a denim, like a thin denim jacket. And she asked me to borrow $20. Now I knew that she was going to use that $20 to get a hit of heroin because she was a heroin addict. And I also knew that if I didn't give her $20, she was going to go sell her body until she got $20. And so and it doesn't matter what choice I made. I don't want it to be about that. But the fact is
that you had to make a choice.
I had to make a choice. And what does love do in that situation? But that girl has a redemption story. And it's a beautiful redemption story. And I believe she's in heaven today. She did end up dying of heroin overdose.
Aww.
But not before she accepted Christ. And even though she accepted Christ, like we're not all perfect the moment we accept Christ. Like that's a message that I would like to have put in a book. So because I think there's this concept or this conception out there that the moment we get saved, suddenly we become perfect.
Right.
And
so
that's not the case.
Oh, for sure. And that's kind of something that what Leah said a little bit ago. She said, I was noticing a habit with Christian fiction that things were getting a little too perfect. That's the other problem that you would run into. Like you have to be careful that you don't go too far. But then if you don't go far enough, then it doesn't come off as authentic. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a risk that what I like to say is that you over sanitize the work and then it's bleached out and faded and doesn't really serve anybody, And it's interesting because I sort of feel like work that does this has its place. I feel like work that does that should not be disparaged in the same way that I don't think Hallmark holiday movies should be disparaged, because sometimes people just want to believe in a world where everything is nice. But as somebody who I feel personally, I grew up a little too naive, I think is helpful to expose people who generally surround themselves with good people to the idea that there is evil in the world and there is a risk that you will be taken advantage of. And if you never read about a life experience of someone who encounters that kind of evil, you are vulnerable to perhaps the snares of the people out there who mean to do you harm. And you gullibly believe that there's no such thing as a boogeyman. I think there's a risk there.
One thing that I've encountered recently is I really haven't watched TV in like the last 20 years because I just don't have time for it. Nothing really captured my interest, and I've got books anyway. But in the last year or so, I've been exposed to some movies, and like the trend these days is in some of these shows, there's not a single character with validating traits. Everybody, they're just all low down. It's like the person you root for is the best of the worst. And there's nothing, obviously these aren't Christian shows, but when you give your characters faults, give them an option to root for somebody who has some sort of good redeeming quality. Don't make all of your characters just the pit.
Right, because that could be the opposite extreme, right?
Yeah.
So Piper says, I am an indie author because trad publishers don't publish what I write. I write realistic fallen characters, some of whom have chosen Christ. So there's the balance, right? A traditional publisher will publish, complete on sex, violence, whatever. A Christian publisher may want to be the opposite extreme and may not want anything that isn't perfect, doesn't show the perfect Christian, right? It depends on the publisher. So how do we as indie publishers find that balance? Because Piper has done that. Piper has decided, well, then I'm going to traditionally publish because my books don't fall into the nastiness or the squeaky cleanness that is unrealistic, right? And that's where I feel too. I feel like, and we've talked about like some of the topics that I covered. And when Tina was talking about the stories that she wants to tell, it was making me think that like I've written about prostitutes. The book that I have that I'm editing right now has some really tough subjects, but you have to handle it well. So if we are Christian writers, how do we find that line? How do you ladies figure that out and find that line?
Shell, when I asked a group of our chatters about this in our office hours, Shell pointed out that our goal, as we say on the end of the podcast, is may all of your words honor Christ.
Amen.
And I thought that that was a really significant thing to think about. And everybody has their own internal barometer about that. And everybody has to him that is sin, he shouldn't do it. Like, I'm completely paraphrasing and ripping something out of the scriptures, but it's like you have the Holy Spirit and you have what people would call your conscience, and you have to feel that your words are Christ honoring. And sometimes just putting the microscope up to Christ's creation is honoring. And then it is up to you to decide how much you should reveal, because even in the Bible, there are topics addressed that would make Christian publishers shudder today.
Yes.
If
The
you
Song of
submitted,
Solomon.
I'm saying, if you submitted some of that and said, this is for a Christian audience, there would be pearl clutchers picketing you. And so that's the scriptures, right? And so it's a really interesting sort of line to toe. And I see that Piper says she calls her books clean, but that is a nebulous line. And I know she doesn't have any hanky-panky in them.
Right. And Maria says that she totally agrees, Jamie. It's why I'm not the biggest fan of the word clean. I still use the term for marketing, et cetera, but people's lives are still messy. I think that's the key too, is like we're writing about messy people because that's realistic. But what you just said, Jamie, kind of brought us back full circle to like, are you marketing to a Christian audience? And what does your brand promise?
Yeah.
My brand of Christian romance is very specific, and there's a certain promise of what you're going to get. And I just make sure that I stick to that. So I guess that's one of my first pieces of advice is know who you are, know whose you are. So I'm always telling my kids, know who you are, know whose you are, and then make sure that you stick to it. Whatever it is, if you feel that your writing is going to have some of these tough issues, then you stick to that and you write it in a way, like Jamie was saying, like that you write in a way that honors Christ, and then let the readers find you.
So when I was figuring out what my brand was, what I wrote down in my business plan was that I was going to write books with strong biblical themes. So that doesn't necessarily always mean that Jesus is going to be mentioned in the book. It just means that there's going to be strong biblical themes. And so to me, like, glorifying God is a big deal. And I always pray before I write, and then I go with my gut, kind of, is what I do. But that word glory, to glorify something, when you look it up in the original Greek, here my Greek geekness is coming out, it actually means to make known. Like, that's the technical definition of to glorify something, is to make it known. And so if I'm going to glorify Christ, if I'm going to make him known to my readers, then I have to think about, well, and it's not like what would Jesus do, but like, how would Jesus respond? What would Jesus have done if he was sitting in my car on that 20 below day with the heroin addict and she asked him for $20? Like, what would he do? I have to, like, we don't know that answer, right? He would probably reach out his hand and heal her of her addiction, and she wouldn't need the heroin, right? I didn't have that power. But what would he do if he were me? And so that's like, I think this is really muddy. I'm having a hard time telling you that I want to show Christ in my writing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Shell says, I struggle with this issue because I want my characters to have a redemption arc, but it's hard to find the line of how much of the bad to expose before she had that redemption. All right, I want to address this. And then once I do, I'd like us to, like, any of us that feel comfortable, like, talk about your specific kind of lines that you draw, if you can think of that. Like, especially like, okay, so I don't write mystery or like murder mystery, Rhonda, but you could speak to that, right? Like kind of like what you think that a general Christian audience would expect and like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Shell, for me with romance, the redemption arc for me is more important than the romance arc. And I know that people are gonna be like, what? Like the romance has to be there or people aren't going to read it. But for me as the writer, if I can't have a good redemption arc, then it's not a good story. Like romance is great and everything, but like if they don't have a redemption arc, then they're not real people. And for me, I feel like God has given me these stories and that it's a ministry for me. So what I would say to what you're struggling with is that show the bad, but you don't have to give the details. Like, so let's just look at my first probably really bad character was John from Avoiding Esther. He was not a good guy. He was not a nice guy at the beginning. He was kind of like out for, like, he just was going to get from women what he was going to get. But I insinuated that. I didn't actually show him getting what he was going to get. I showed, like, if he was going to swear, I just said he swore under his breath. I didn't use the swear word. So like just giving you a little taste of, that's what I'm saying. Like show them as bad. You need to have bad situations. The book I'm editing right now, she made some really bad choices and you learn what happened to her because of those bad choices. But I don't have to go into detail of exactly what happened, if that makes sense. So that's where the line is that you have to find. But I would encourage you to try to show as much of the bad and be realistic without giving as many details.
When I was writing Lost, one of the bad guys, I wrote a rape scene where the bad guy raped a character. And I thought it was really good writing, but in my gut, I knew that I had gone too far. Trying to get into the head because it was from his point of view. And I think probably I could have kept it if it had been from some, like the girl's point of view, maybe. Because it wasn't graphic. But because I was in his head with his thoughts, I felt I had gone too far and I cut it. So that's just an example in my writing.
For me personally, I think of two things. I think of some daughter or even son, someday, somebody's daughter or son, if my books were ever made into a film, will have to portray this character. And if my child was going out for the role, would I want them to be at risk of having to unclothe themselves or compromise how they would speak or really compromise themselves to play the role? And if so, I don't want to include that in the piece because I don't want permission for a director to go way off the rails and make somebody's son or daughter behave in a way that compromises their personal integrity. I want my roles to be able to be played clean if that's what the actor or actress would want. I know it's a really bizarre way of looking at things.
No, I think it's a
I love
great
it.
tangible way. That is a great piece of advice, I think.
And also, I feel like my characters aren't necessarily on a redemption arc, but there is good and evil, and there is my other tangible thing is like imagining reading whatever the piece is to somebody who is in a sick bed or something and having to say the words out loud to your granny. And would it be something that I would be comfortable reading out loud to grandma, grandpa, Aunt Sue, whatever? And I know everybody's line is going to be different, but if I wouldn't be comfortable reading it out loud, then I don't want to trip somebody else up who picks up my book and opens it, and now they have to read blah, 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 and they might go, ugh. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I love that. Great advice.
And besides, everybody's Aunt Sue might be a little different too.
I have an Aunt Sue who is the life of the party. So
Yeah.
I think one of the first adults I ever heard cuss was my grandma. So
No.
she dropped her beer.
Well, and that's the thing, things like cuss words, everybody's gonna have a different, again, you gotta know your audience and what your audience will expect and tolerate from you, right?
Right. She was from Ireland, so she didn't think that was a cuss word.
Right.
Yeah. Well, for me, I made it easy on myself. The more choices I take out of my life, the easier and more streamlined my life is. So going with
That's actually
cozy-
a scientific fact.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. So I went with Cozy Mysteries because you never see blood and gore on the page, and there's never any sex on the page. So that's just made it super easy for me.
Those are industry standards, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's helpful for sure.
Mhm.
There's
Because
a lot better
thank
industry
goodness
standards for things that are like clean, I think, than that are Christian. Because like again, like we saw early in the podcast, like some Christian publishers, which we're independently published, but some Christian publishers won't publish something unless it's like squeaky clean to the point where they're not real. So I think that's better. There's more standards. It's easier to follow. Sorry, Tina.
It's okay. I was just gonna say, thank goodness there's no sex on this page, because seeing Angela Lansbury in a compromising position is not something
Well,
that I
that
want.
sheriff was pretty cute. Yeah. All right. Can we move on to the feeding of the backs?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, what we're doing here is before this podcast started this morning, we all took 15 minutes and took our sprint prompt and we wrote. And these are unedited and they are just fresh off of our brain first thing this morning.
That's
so no
scary.
criticism. Yeah. No criticism, only good feedback, positive, encouraging feedback. So let's see. Jennifer, why don't you go first?
All right. So today's topic or today's sprint prompt was, I can't believe she said that. And it was in quotes. So you know what that means? It means that you have to use it. Because if you don't, then we're going to show up at your house and erase your entire hard drive.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I'm in trouble.
So I actually used it as my first sentence. Like, I feel like it's a cop out. I try so hard sometimes to not use it. But I did use it. So
Hey, before we go any further, Rhonda, why don't you read what Love Qualified just said in the chat?
Oh, sure. Hello, my name is Joan and I'm in the UK. I'm always at work when you guys go live, but just wanted to say this podcast has helped me so much on my author journey. And Jen, I love your books.
Aww.
Yay!
I just got goosebumps from that. Thank you, Joan. I just really appreciate that.
Doesn't that kind of like help you get excited about putting out the next one? She's
Oh
gonna
my gosh.
love it. It's like I don't know, it might be my favorite.
Yeah, I'll
Nice to
save
meet you, Joan.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Joan. And I'm gonna save that for my what's next after
right.
we're done with this. Okay. I can't believe. Sorry, it's a man's voice.
Yeah.
I can't believe she said that. No, I can't believe she said that. I can. Kate stopped mid scoop and stood straight. What's that supposed to mean? Chappie shrugged and continued digging his hole. It's not like you're the first fella to come poking his nose around here trying to snatch her land from beneath her. What else was she supposed to think? Cade stuck his shovel in the ground and leaned on the handle. Other ranchers offered to buy her land? Chappie shook his head. I didn't say all of them offered money. Cade felt an uneasy heat begin to rise up his spine. What are you saying? I'm saying that some, like you, came offering next to nothing for her land thinking she was desperate and stupid. But just like you, they figured out that she wasn't either. I never thought she was stupid, Cade said, not appreciating being lumped in with the other less scrupulous men. Chappie finally stopped digging and looked Cade right in the eye. If you thought she was desperate enough to accept your offer, then either you thought she was stupid or, he said, tipping his hat back, you was the stupid one. Cade didn't like being compared to the other men, but he disliked being called stupid even more. But any indignation that he felt was snuffed out by Chappie's earlier words. You said some of the other ranchers offered money. What about the others? Chappie spit in the dry Texas dirt. Just about every man in a 100-mile radius came sniffing around here like she was some sort of dog in heat, and they were going to claim her. whether she was willing or not. It all made sense to Cade now. Colleen's anger, her distrust, her shotgun greeting whenever he was around. She wasn't just turning down his financial proposition. She was turning down any other kind of advances. 3, 2, 1.
Oh.
I'm so glad you're still writing in this one. I
This
can't
is
wait
the
to
next
finish this out.
book. Like, as soon as I get this other one off, this is the next book. Yeah. So,
Yay.
Widows of the West, right?
yes.
Mhm. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I like Cade. I like Chappie.
Mhm.
I like the dry Texas dirt. I like the spitting.
I really like
And-
her and her shotgun.
Yeah,
Yes,
really.
Like, she's my
yes.
kind of girl.
hmm Yep. During the sprint, I kept getting distracted by the names and the words that you were using, just because they just add so much to the scene for me.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, and it's really been cool that you've been writing in this world for the past few episodes. So if
Mhm.
anybody listening hasn't heard about these characters before, it's worth it to go back and at least watch our sprints. But Rhonda, you are maybe going to put together a collection of just us reading our sprints. Isn't that something that you had on your plate?
Yes, that's something I was alluding to earlier in the podcast. Yes, those will be
Yeah.
coming very soon.
That's exciting. Is because this is a really, really fun world and a good way, I think, to get people anticipating when the book is done.
So, is it okay if I ask for some feedback, like specific feedback?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah,
so
if you
couple
want it.
I do. Because, all right. So, one of the problems I'm having with this book already is that I have a lot of names to start with C. And I know
Mm.
that's one of the rules. Cade and Colleen, I think it's okay for your main characters to both have the same, because it's male, female. But then I have Chappie, and then I have Charlotte. And it's like, but these characters are already real to me. Like, if this is their names, and I'm just like, oh.
But it's not the same C sound every time.
Right.
But when
So
you
that
read,
didn't
it's
trip
more
me up.
because you're hearing it. But
Right.
it's more about reading. So that's one thing I have
You
to
could
work
always
on.
spell Cade with a K.
Oh,
True.
I could.
Yeah. But when I'm reading, I guess I read out loud in my head.
Yeah, me too. So, all right, so that's the one thing. The other thing was, and I left it. I went ahead, I was writing, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, because of today's topic, I left it. Was there anything that was harsh or like, ooh, to you guys as I was reading it? You thought, oh, it might have gone too far.
What do you mean? And gone too far in what way? So I guess the answer is no.
All right.
You did say dog and heat, but
Yes.
I didn't feel like it was.
So for Christian romance, here's what I thought. Just about every man in a 100-mile radius came sniffing around here like she was some sort of dog in heat, and they were going to claim her, whether she was willing or not. So the dog in heat is when I thought, gosh, is that too much for a Christian novel? So
no, I mean, especially because I know what's coming to us in your book, and I've read other stuff that you've done. Like, you don't shy away from the fact that things happen between men and women.
So it's not too vulgar, though.
No.
Okay. So
It would be something that I would question too, though, if I was writing it. Like, do I believe that or do I not?
But this goes back to knowing your brand and sticking to it. So, all right, thanks. I appreciate it. Oh, and I think thanks guys for all of the comments. Let's see. Piper says, "Oh my gosh, love the spit in the dry Texas dirt and the dog and heat comments." Oh, good. I didn't even see that. So she liked that. All right. Shell says, "Yay, I love it, Jen. Great continuity and character work. Thanks." Gigi says, "Jen, so good. Love the names of your characters." All right, great. So that's right.
And she typed that before you asked.
And she said, "It's guys talking." That's true.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys would talk, especially an old guy, which Chappie is an old dude. So, all right, thanks everybody. I really appreciate the feedback. That's very helpful.
Yep. All right, Tina.
Okay. I never got to the sentence, but it was coming. So don't compromise my hard drive. I was working my way towards there, but then the timer went off. The wind howled outside the walls of the one-room cabin. Anastasia sat on the foot of the bed, gripping the bed frame and trying to remember to breathe. Then the pains would grip her middle and the screams would come unbidden from her throat. She knew women had been doing this since the beginning of time. It was a part of life, a part of nature, but she was terrified. It had been almost 2 days, and still the pains gripped her every few minutes, sending shockwaves through her middle and making any thought of anything else cease. Surely the child inside of her couldn't withstand much more. She tried to remember the last time she'd felt the baby move, but the pain and pressure returned, driving all thoughts from her mind once more. Victor had been gone 3 days now. He'd gone to search for game and promised to be back within a week. Her time wasn't supposed to be here so soon, and he thought to get enough meat so that he wouldn't have to go out again until spring and be back before the baby arrived. The morning after he left, her pains had started. They were mild enough at first that she'd simply continued what she was doing, pausing at the worst of them to breathe through the pain. By the time they were bad enough for her to realize this was it was too late to do anything but ride it out. The nearest neighbor was a 2-hour walk on a good day with no physical hindrances. She may have been able to make it on that first day when the pains weren't so bad and the sun was sparkling like diamonds on the snow. But then the storm moved in, thick snow blowing almost horizontally in the howling wind, and even going to the privy could be life-threatening if you let go of the rope Victor had secured between the privy door and the porch railing of the house. Anastasia tried not to think about her husband out in such weather or the dwindling woodpile outside the door. She tried not to berate herself for not heading for the neighbors at the first pain. Not that the neighbor would be all that happy to see her anyway. Their last meeting had not gone well. Mrs. Anatola had looked at her swollen belly, shook her head, and said, "Doesn't seem possible to be so pregnant so soon after the wedding." 3, 2,
Oh my
1.
gosh. So much good stuff in such a short amount of time.
Mhm.
Angela's having a baby?
No, this is Anastasia.
Oh, I thought you said Angela.
No,
I'm so
it's a
excited.
different person.
All right. So much. Go ahead, Rhonda.
I was just going to say, I forgot about critiquing because I was so engulfed in the story.
I love
Like-
the names.
My first reaction was as soon as you started, I remember for my first child, I was induced because I had preeclampsia and I was in the hospital for days before the induction worked.
Mm.
And then the minute they took me out of the induction room and started wheeling me towards the labor room, the sheer terror that strikes a woman. So when you're writing that, I was just I was there with her, and I was in a sterile hospital with doctors and nurses and all around me. I was just so I was on, I was there on the edge of my seat with her. So good. Yeah.
I was too. I was exact same. I was fine until they got that big crochet hook out. And then all of a sudden I was just panic central. I felt it, Tina. Yeah.
And the other thing too is it's so awesome that you wrote this because we're talking about how much is too much. So in my Widows of the West series, I have planned a birth. There is in one of the books, it's going to happen because every time I read a historical novel, a Christian historical novel, and there's a birth, you're out basically in the room with the husband hearing everything happen. You're never in that room ever. And I'm like, that ain't happening. We're gonna be in there. That's again, that goes back to how much is too much. I think it can be written well, and you did. You're writing it well.
And I don't have the experience of being out in the room with the husband.
Right.
I have the experience of the pains and the ripping you, feel like your middle's being ripped apart, and the terror and the
so good
and the not being able to think and all of that.
I think that this exercise was a success because the first thing you want to say when you're finished is, "I can't believe she said that."
That was going to be the next line, but
instead it's
timer
the
went off.
reader's reaction.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got a lot of good chat happening too. Piper says, "Isn't it always too late to do anything but write it out?" It seems like it. Shell says, "Wow, Tina, perfect description of labor. So scary to think she's by herself. So much could go wrong." That was me. I was there. You made us feel it, Tina.
Yep.
Gigi,
Thanks.
oh, Tina, love this so much. My heart was breaking for her. Yeah. So good.
All right. Well, I will go next. Okay, this is a true sprint because I don't have the lingo down. I don't know the characters that well, and blah, blah, blah. And
Good.
I also didn't get the sentence in there. So,
And she
here we go.
wishes she could keep writing all day. So I'm excited.
Yes.
I know where both of you live, so watch out for your hard drive. I'm just saying.
Oh, no. All right. The door to the street opened, blinding me momentarily while reminding me it was barely 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The shaft of light that pierced my brain also ratted out my scruffy look. Time to change out this crumpled suit. It probably smells like stale beer, smoke, and peanuts, but no one here would notice that. When I cracked my eyes back open, I was startled by the vision before me. It was the most beautiful bombshell of an angel I could ever imagine. With the light behind her, her golden hair looked like a halo, and her curves looked like they were sculpted by one of those old Greek artists. And her blood red dress still fit all those curves in just the right way. You're blocking the light. Scram. I said, hoping she wouldn't, but also hoping she would. Listen, mister. Her voice was like butter dripping off an ear corn. I don't want to bother you, but I got in trouble, and Vinny told me you could help. Her lips, painted the same shade as her dress, pooched into a pout that temptingly resembled a pucker. How could she hold that pucker and snap her gum at the same time? I have to find out someday. Soon. Who's Vinny and why do I care? I knew exactly who Vinny was, but I wanted to know why she knew Vinny. Her pucker froze. I got to quit thinking about those lips. Okay. So I wrote this with the theme in mind today.
Uh-huh.
Too far or not?
What do you mean too far? No, it's
No,
so fun.
perfect.
Okay.
So how many words did you get? I got to hear because that was like a lot. It was great.
248.
Yay.
You could put so much into 248. Like, so this is obviously going to be like first of all, I got to tell you, I started seeing it in black and white. Like I could see like because like the detective and the the gumshoe kind of a feeling that it had.
Mhm.
And then it changed for me to like, I know you're a Star Trek fan, so I know you're going to get this.
Yeah.
And I'm looking up the actual episode name right now. But do you remember the episode? It's in season 2, where they get trapped in a. Tina is shaking her head. Yes, where they get trapped in a novel that is.
On the holodeck.
Yeah, it's not on the holodeck. It's in like another world where they. Anyways, so well done. Anyways, you you transported me there. I was in the middle of the mystery already, and I don't have any of the clues yet. So well done. Sorry.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, at first I thought this was a female protagonist, and I was interested that she was wearing a suit. And then immediately when you talked about like, oh, here's this bombshell, like Jen, I immediately flipped into like the whole world is black and white except that dress and those lips.
And the
they
hair.
are red, and there's a saxophone playing somewhere.
Yes.
And it's like da, 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 and in the background and stuff like that. It totally set the scene right away. I just really was transported. I love when you write this. I can't wait to read a whole book of it.
I don't know
Jessica
what this.
Rabbit, yes, Jessica Rabbit.
Oh,
is what
yeah.
Shelby
I don't know
said.
what this says about me, but I immediately went to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like,
It's just our generation, right?
Yeah.
I did kind of have it in the back of my mind. I didn't realize that until you mentioned it. Yeah. That's funny.
Awesome.
Jamie, we're eagerly awaiting your submission.
My hard drive is safe. All right. Usually I don't include the prompt. And by the way, if anybody would like to see one of us actually create these pieces, I stream them every week to Christian Indie Writers YouTube channel. So if you go over to our YouTube, you can see me actually create my sprint pieces, and you can watch old ones if you want. Okay, so prompt. I can't believe she said that. I scrubbed a bit harder at the Kool-Aid stain I'd been working on, happy that I'd decided to wear my painting clothes for today's cleanup. No worries about bleach from the soft scrub that speckled my Guns N' Roses tee. I'm not sure why you're surprised. Matthew was pawing through the candy dish. Somehow I was not irritated. It always went that way. He and I would agree on a work day and we would both show up, but only one of us would do the working, usually me, while the other of us basically served as good company for the other. Trying hard not to think about the last time I had occupied the good company role, I tossed my sponge into the sink and soaked a piece of old towel with cold water. I guess you're right, I said. Meryl has been nothing but a drama queen from the day she first stepped foot into the church. I scowled as the lather I'd worked up came away to reveal a stain as bright as ever it was before I'd started my scrubbing. Leave it, Matthew said with a lazy wave of the hand. The counter is clean and that's what matters. We're going to be replacing it one of these days anyway. Oh, you plan on winning the lottery this week or something? I teased, but inside it felt more like a poke than a tease. I knew Matthew wouldn't pick up on it. It would be something I'd have to repent for later. Can't win if you don't play, he shrugged. Truth is, I picked up a bit of side work. I think it could lead to something pretty steady. Really? It came out less surprised and more excited, just as I hoped it would. That's great. What's the gig? The couple who had me put in sod last spring? Yeah. Well, they've asked me to come and do a bit of painting for them. Painting? Yeah. Oh, is there drywall involved? A bit. Nothing I can't handle. I wanted to say, we've discussed this. Drywall's not your thing. I wanted to ask, what's going to happen when they realize you're neither equipped nor capable for the task? Instead, I redirected to the discussion as I moved the toaster aside so I could wipe underneath it. Anyway, Meryl is stirring the pot again, and as usual, it's up to me to make things right. Matthew picked up the toaster and removed the crumb catcher, dumping most of the contents into the garbage, but allowing a considerable helping to fall onto the kitchen floor as well. I managed not to sigh. I don't see why you don't just kick her out. Kick her out of women's group? Yeah, right. Why not? Women's group is open to any woman in the church, Matt, and I'm only one person on the board. I don't have that sort of unilateral decision-making power. Can't you, vote her out or something? He slid the tray back into the bottom of the ancient appliance and set it down on the counter opposite of me. He plugged it in, giving a sort of satisfactory pat, as though identifying its placement as the toaster's new home. My face grew warm as I slid the cutting board aside and moved the bread box out of the way to wipe there. Putting the toaster back later would be no big deal, but if he moved both of these items as well, I'd lose it. It doesn't work that way, I said calmly, while the sound of my rapidly beating heart thrummed in my ears. I don't know how you do it, he said, shaking his head and folding his arms as he turned to lean against the counter. To be honest, I'm not sure either, I said, and snapped the counter with the towel. I think that's all I'm going to do today. Yeah, he said, I've had enough of this. Let's go catch some Netflix.
Wow.
Time's up.
So, I don't know how you do it, how you get so much writing in 15 minutes and so full on characters and full on angst, the whole time. I'm there with her. So good, Jamie.
Yeah. That is a true gift straight from God. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And to have the unilateral power. Sorry.
That's great.
My favorite part was how you were able to show in that little writing how men and women see things differently and how they deal with things differently. A man would just be just get rid of her. Right. But women know we can't do that. And even if we could, we wouldn't, because we know that you just can't do that. Do you know what I'm saying? So just well done. Well done.
Yeah. The little things you put in, the heartbeat thrumming in the ears and snapping the towel. This person's nervous, but they're not showing it externally. It's
the crumbs amazing. From the toaster
under the floor. That was
yeah.
We've all been there. We know this person, or we are this person.
I was irritated. I'm like, why?
Help that is not helpful is what I like to call that.
Yeah.
And then, let's put the toaster over somewhere new. Also unhelpful. Thanks for your help. Anyway. Yeah.
Shell
writing can be therapeutic.
Yes.
Yes, it sure can. Shell says, so great, Jamie. Your dialogue is so realistic. It makes the characters come to life. Agreed. Piper agrees. She says, so good, Jamie. Rhonda, I missed some of your comments because I was too busy trying to find that episode, which was season 2, episode 12, The Royale.
All right.
Piper says, Rhonda, I lost signal, so I have to listen to the later. That was phenomenal. Agreed.
That was very nice. Thank you.
And Shell says, awesome, Rhonda, very Jessica Rabbit vibe. Yep. And
Yeah.
Gigi says, Rhonda, wow, I enjoyed your writing from the guy's perspective. Your internal thinking really pulled me in.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you.
Gigi also says about Jamie, that was awesome. Just a conversation with these characters, so well developed in such a short amount of time. Loved it.
Yep.
That's why she's the queen of short stories, which coincidentally, we're talking short stories next week. Just throwing that out there.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's wrap up today's episode. We're trying to scoot Tina out of here because she has a very important date. So let's talk about what we're doing next coming up this week. So, Jennifer.
Okay, so my what's next is Jamie kind of alluded to it earlier. I am almost done with my first round of edits. I'm just at a really rough chapter, and life just keeps happening all around me, as you guys are kind of been letting everybody here on the podcast know. But I'm halfway through one chapter. The scene changes, and I have to make some decisions on how I'm going to handle this scene. And so just be in prayer for me for that. But I've been doing that, and I've been trying to get back into the marketing game too, because I've just let everything go. So that's so my what's next is finishing these last 3 chapters, first round edit, and getting some more graphics and stuff done for social media.
All right.
What
Tina?
about you, Rhonda? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I was just
well,
gonna throw it back to you.
I'll just tell you what I'm doing. I'm gonna go to the gym as soon as I leave here and intellect the whole time, and then come back and write until I
Awesome.
just can't write anymore.
I love that.
I bet you do. So tell us what you're doing.
Well, I made it through a really rough patch in my editing revision where I was really struggling with what to do with a particular scene. I was kind of stuck, and um, I figured it out with the help of a coach, and now I'm moving on. So things are
Awesome.
moving a lot faster now.
That's great news.
That is great news. Awesome.
Yep. Jamie, tell us about you.
I am at almost 800 newsletter subscribers, and my goal is to have to pay for MailerLite next year, which means I need to get to 1,000. So in order to get new subscribers, I'm going to have to be joining some promos and keep on putting out a newsletter that's full of good stuff for my wonderful readers. So if you would like to become one of my wonderful readers and help me get to 1,000 subscribers, you can subscribe to the Writing Shorts newsletter at www.writingshorts.net. You will get the free short story A Knight's Gift, which, by the way, is only available by becoming a newsletter subscriber. It's a traditional fairy tale sort of fantasy story, and I would love for you to become one of my wonderful readers. You'll get a free short story sent to your inbox every single month. WritingShorts.net.
All right. Well, everybody's, I'm sure, signing up for all these things right now. But do we have anything else we want to say before we head out? All right. Well, we hope to see everybody next week.
We're talking about short stories.
That's right. All right. Anyway, next week. Until next week, may your pen be prolific. May your deadlines be met. And may all of your words honor Christ.
Bye.